Hello Orchid friends, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna talk about my 3 mini Vanda orchids. If this is your first time watching my video, my channel is all about orchids. From what orchids I have, how I grow them, my thoughts on certain orchid topics, to what orchids in my collection are blooming, etc. So if you want to follow along my orchid hobby adventure, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification. I have had these 3 mini Vandaceous orchids for about 1.5 to 2 years, and they came to me as seedling size. They're not fully mature, and I think they're still trying to mature because none of them has bloomed yet. And what you're seeing here are 2 of them being put in the same pot, and then I used to hang them to grow them. But then I do have microfiber strings around their roots area because I know that these type of orchids really enjoy lots of moisture, but at the same time lots and lots of air ventilation. So I hung them because I thought that would give them more air flow, but then the microfiber would provide additional moisture and humidity. But I later found out that, that is still not enough. And then in the later part of this video, you'll see what kind of adjustment I did to these 3 orchids. And this one too. This is the biggest of the 3. And at the time, I was using this 16-ounce cup along with microfiber to try to provide some kind of centralized or more focused moisture. But it wasn't really going all that well, even with the humidity tray at the bottom. I noticed that they would grow roots, but very slow and very tiny progression. Very, one tiny little bit of growth at a time. So I knew that something needs to change, otherwise they would simply not do very well. And some of their roots actually just kind of dried out. And really, just by looking at them at that time, I knew they weren't happy. So I knew I had to do something. This portion of the video is just to demonstrate how I used to water these orchids. So the 2 smaller ones will be in this little cup, and then I would just put them into another same size cup and just let them soak in that water, because there are holes at the bottom so the water can easily get into it when I double cup them. And then I just let them soak for about 20-30 minutes or even up to 4 hours sometimes if I forget about them. And then I would just hang them back up to the growing rack. Right, it worked really well for me in terms of saving space and everything, but like I said earlier, I think humidity and just the frequency of me having to water really was an issue. So I actually put them into a bigger vase in the background, and then for the third the bigger orchid, the same thing. I basically just used the same 2 cups, double cup them and let them soak for an extended period of time, and then I would put it back onto that small humidity tray that I created. But that only really helped so much. And at the time, I was using reverse osmosis water. I still do use RO water for them, but occasionally, actually most of the time, every other day, I'll have to soak them. So I actually try to save the water. So I would use another container to put it right on top to reduce the evaporation speed. But overall, since I put them into this vase, this big flower vase, I have seen some pretty good result. And at the bottom here, that's just hydrocorn that I use to break the water tension so that the water evaporation will increase. And I think these 3 orchids really enjoy the higher humidity and concentrated humidity going up along, the vase. And I also use a hook. I hook them at the bottom of each orchid, and then on the top, I just hang it on the tip of the vase. And that allows me to easily put them back into the vase or take them out easily when I need to water them. So that actually has worked pretty well. So now let's take a look at some of the photos I've taken of them growing their roots after I moved them into this vase. So the number one thing that I noticed is that the speed of their growth increased dramatically since I transfer them into this vase. And due to higher temperature, yes, and higher humidity, so I think it's just happier this way. Like this picture, for example, I would never see them growing new roots at this speed when they were just outside in a regular cup being hung somewhere, because my overall home environment really at most is 50%, 55% humidity, unless I have my humidifier on. Right, and this is the way that I used to water them too. I would soak them in the same cup because I thought, they're in the same vase anyway, so if there's any cross-contamination, they will get it anyway. So that was my lazy way of watering them. It's not recommended, but if you are okay with the risk, then you can totally do that. Only if you're okay with it, but it's not recommended. But like you see here, it's growing roots, pushing out new roots, and the older roots are also getting some new root tips coming out. So I overall was very happy to see that all these orchids were pushing out new roots. And how I care for them is really I water them once a week. Since I put them into this vase, I only go with a weekly watering schedule, and for the rest of the week they'll simply have to rely on the evaporation from the bottom, the reservoir. And I give it about 50% or half strength fertilizer whenever I give them fertilizer, and usually that is every other week as well. This orchid these type of orchid, I noticed that they also enjoy a heavier dosage of fertilizer, unlike Phalaenopsis orchids. So if you have these kind of orchids, you can consider giving it a bit more fertilizer than your Phalaenopsis. And these are just some shots I have taken in the evening. So the top cap really is a saucer, and I just simply close it in the evening. Actually, I open it in the evening, and then during the daytime I want to increase humidity because it's warmer. I would actually close it before I go to work, and then when I come back home, it's in the evening, then I would open it to allow more air ventilation and exchange of air. It's kind of nice to see that these orchids are responding to the new experiment that I'm doing to them. They're growing roots, and they seem to be much happier than before. So I think overall, I'm seeing good success. But this is just the initial stage. Sometimes orchid will grow and then they will stop growing. So let's give them some more time to see if they'll grow even more leaves. There were some new leaves coming out as well, but I would like to see them grow more, and hopefully they will mature soon so they can start flowering. I think these are all either yellow or orange flowers, but I just haven't seen any one of them bloom yet, so we'll have to see what happened. Here is another video footage I found. I must have taken this video a couple months ago. I think I was only taking this video clip for my own reference, because at the time I really did not have any plan of making any orchid video to share on this channel on these 3 orchids, because what I was doing at the time was purely an experiment, and I didn't know if they were going to respond to this new setup. But it turned out that they actually responded to this new setup really well. So that's a very nice surprise. But anyway, speaking of experiment, I totally encourage any one of you out there who want to learn more about your orchids and how you can grow orchids better in your own environment, to do experiments. I mean, you can see other people's experiments online thanks to YouTube and all these, wonderful online resources. but you know, it's an experiment for me, for my environment. And you really should be trying different methods to come up with your own golden rules about growing orchids in your own home. And sometimes you may have the same environment, but because you have a different lifestyle, you may only can afford to grow certain orchids really well versus others. For example, there are orchids that, for example, Vanda orchids enjoys a lot of water, but a lot of air. Are you allowed? Can you afford to water your orchids every day, or can you afford to have orchids mounted onto a driftwood and have the time to water them every day? I certainly don't, for example, and that's why I don't have any I don't grow my orchids mounted. So you have to try different things to really understand what's best for your style, your household environment. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point, but this is all I have for you today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That'll really help me out. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!